I'm Scott Al Miller. It is the 9th of August, 2022, and welcome to my daily vlog of life in Nicaragua. Today is Tuesday, and we're going to be talking about hot showers and hot water in general here in Nicaragua because it is a topic that comes up quite a bit, and everyone has an opinion on it. But before that, today, work day, not a lot of news. Again, this week, very busy, a lot going on. Had a lot yesterday. Today was not nearly as dramatic as yesterday, but it's kind of an emotional, decompressed day. But things are going okay. The cool thing, the only real news of the day is that tonight, Dominica helped look at Luciana's baking of the chocolate chip cookies that she did the other day. And what she did the other day, they turned out okay and they tasted pretty good, but they were not very cookie-like. They were a little bit more like a biscuit, very dense, and not super sweet, but they were certainly sweet. They were chocolate chip cookies, and they really kept their shape, which we didn't expect. So today, Dominica helped go through the ingredients and look at everything. And I'm going to spin the camera around so you can see town while I'm talking. So she looked at the ingredients and the first thing she said was, well, your brown sugar, did you pack it? And Luciana's like, well, how am I supposed to pack it? So that was the first thing. There was not nearly enough sugar for it just because she wasn't aware. And the instructions didn't say to pack it. And Dominica's like, no, you just have to know that you pack brown sugar. It's just how brown sugar works. So that was the first thing. More brown sugar. Gonna improve the recipe for sure. They'll take care of some of the sweetness. But then she went through and found sitting on the table a bag of Vital Wheat gluten. Hola. And she said, wait, have you been using this? And Shauna's like, yeah, that's the flour. And of course it is a form of flour. And she pulls it out and she's like, oh no, this is only the gluten from the wheat and not the flour itself. So the cookies that she had made were basically, many times the amount of gluten that you would want in a cookie, and really, really high protein and low on sugar. So they were much healthier than a normal cookie, but that explained everything. So Luciana, taking those two pieces of information, knowing where our actual flour was, and they were also, I should say, the most expensive chocolate chip cookies you will probably ever have, because Vital Wheat gluten is not only expensive in the US, it's unavailable in Nicaragua. So that is Vital Wheat gluten flown in from the United States. So that sucked a little bit. So she redid the same cookie recipe tonight, and Dominica tried to talk her. She's like, I think I sent you easier cookie recipes. And Luciana's like, I got this. I don't need easier. I just needed this information. And so Luciana did her own recipe of cookies again, used the right amount of brown sugar, used the regular flour, and they turned out absolutely fantastic. Very reminiscent of my mother's chocolate chip cookies. And because of the weather here, they tend to flatten out more than you would get in say, the United States, just because of the continuous warm weather. So they don't hold their shape quite as much. And there's things you can do, and Dominica normally adds oat flour to diminish that effect, but it doesn't change the taste. It just makes them large and flat instead of a little bit thicker and smaller. But they turned out so perfect. These are some of the best chocolate chip cookies that I've ever had. I mean, I'm not going to say they're the best, but they are very, very good chocolate chip cookies. Quite impressive for Luciana's second outing making cookies and making them completely on her own. She doesn't need any help to do this other than with the oven. And that they turned out this well. And the only reason they probably didn't turn out this well the first time is she didn't know about packing the brown sugar, and she certainly didn't know where to find the flour. And the flour thing would only happen because it was all in Spanish, so she couldn't tell that she was getting something that wasn't flour because she doesn't know what the words are. She's just looking at the powder and saying, well, that's flour. So very impressive. We ate a lot of cookies tonight. That could be a problem if she starts baking this stuff all the time. But another impressive night of Luciana baking on her baking spree week. All right, so that brings us to our topic of the week, of the day, which is there hot water in Nicaragua? And what do we think about it? Because everyone seems to have an opinion about this, and the opinions are weird. So first of all, it should go without saying, there is not very much hot water in Nicaragua. And it just is what it is. Now, some people will actually argue this and be like, oh no, hot water is widespread. It's very common. It is not. I don't know why people say this, because it's absolutely untrue. It is very easy if you have the desire and the financial resources to have hot water. Of course, you can have it, and it's not that big of a deal. There's lots of ways to do it. You can do anything you can do in the States, and we've talked about this on the show before, one of the challenges is that there is no plumbing for hot water in houses. So if you want to put in hot water, you have to figure out where it's going to flow. If you're building a new house, of course, you simply build hot water piping into the house, and it's that easy. But if you're not building a new construction, if you're taking an existing house that has no plumbing for hot water, that's more challenging than it seems. You can't just magically, get a hot water tank or whatever and hook it up to nothing and hope that the hot water is going to start going where you want it to go. That makes no sense. So I think a lot of people overlook the fact that if you're buying existing houses, you have a real challenge to that. Second is, for the most part, people don't have it because it's just not necessary, right? It is quite warm here, and most of the time you're not actually looking for a hot shower. You may not want to take a cold one. That's fine. So the ways to tackle it beyond putting in plumbing is you can do passive solar on the roof, which is really just black plastic or whatever, and PVC piping. You can do it very inexpensively, very easily, and get effective hot water. That way, in many places that get a lot of sun like this, do that all the time. No problem at all. That is a really great approach, very ecologically friendly, and quite inexpensive. Still have the plumbing problems, but of course you can choose to only plumb to 1 or 2 rooms. If you only care about hot water in your shower, for example, maybe you put that hot water passive unit directly over top of the bedroom where that's going to exist, pump straight into it, and make life relatively easy. But if you want to plumb your entire house, probably going to be pretty complex. Simple things like that. You can get hot water tanks here. Very much not popular because the cost of electricity is a little bit high. So that's if you're using that type, would not be practical. And natural gas is not generally piped in. It's normally brought in tanks. And so that's not an approach that people normally take with that type of device. So tanks, for many reasons, just not that popular. On demand, which is used in much of Europe, is certainly an option here, and that could be gas or it could be electric. If you're going to do a higher end hot water scenario, that is typically what you're going to find, because it does not require all of the plumbing. You run cold water to where it needs to go, and then you heat it at the last second rather than heating it centrally and sending it around the house. That solves the plumbing issues. And then it generally doesn't use a lot of extra energy because you're only heating when you need it, which is not very often. But typically, not always, but typically, those units are going to heat vastly more than you actually want. You're going to end up with too much hot water, like too hot of hot water, and they lose some efficiency because you're simply cranking the temperature up too much, and then you have to cool it down because you don't want hot under almost any circumstances here. It's too warm, right? So there's always about finding a balance. And then similar to that is what we call the suicide shower. This is a unit that only exists for showers. It is a shower head that actually has electricity in it. So when we talk about putting your heater at the last moment, it is truly the last possible moment. It heats the water as it comes out of the shower head and often leaves it with a bit of electrical charge in it, which people find invigorating in some kind of way. They're a bit dangerous, but I have no stories of anyone being hurt by them. But they're called suicide showers because they are absolutely terrifying. You're running full 110 volt power directly into your shower head in the shower where there's water. It's seriously, it's scary in every possible way. So everybody hates those, but they're the most common thing that you're going to find because they are by far the most cost effective. So that's what you find. Now, the other argument that we hear a lot is, do you need it? And what you hear from a lot of Nicaraguans is, why would anyone want hot water? It is a hot place. You always want cold water. This makes no sense to me, because if you live in Nicaragua full time, then it's not that hot. You become adjusted to it, and this is your normal temperature. And just like anywhere else, when you take a shower, you like it to be a little bit warmer, at least, than your ambient temperature in most cases. Of course, if you're out jogging or doing something where you're excessively warm, if it's a really, really hot day, you're going to want it to be cooler. But on average, people do not want their showers to be excessively cold. They may not want them to be hot, but they don't want them to be cold. Coming from America, we have the expectation of hot showers. We're simply used to it. The idea of taking a cold shower seems really weird. It's not that we're like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. It's just you're not expecting it, and it's a level of luxury that catches you off guard to be lacking. You forget that there's places that wouldn't be able to do it. And hot water is important for things beyond showers. For example, one of the most important places that we use hot water is when we are cleaning dishes. So imagine having to clean all of your dishes without hot water. If you have a dishwasher, like a machine, typically they heat the water themselves, so they get around the problem. But if you are washing by hand, as almost everyone does here, you are stuck doing so with cold water, which will work, but takes a lot more effort and is difficult to get as clean. It does not cut greases and oils very well. So there's just a lot of that. And if you live in the United States, you're used to being told, wash your hands in warm or hot water. Don't wash your hands in cold water, because the soap just is not nearly as effective in cold water. Same thing for washing your hair or anything else. I just kicked a top of a pineapple in the street. It's the funniest thing sometimes. So there's lots of reasons why you want hot water. The argument that nobody actually wants hot water and that it's a ridiculous request makes no sense and does not apply. That's just BS that people say. Yes, you can get away without it. It's not a problem. Don't be super premium and be like, I have to have hot water. But if you're going to live here and own a place, wanting to put in hot water is a completely reasonable thing that makes sense for so many reasons. And even locals who are used to cold showers and have no experience broadly with having hot showers, I think people don't realize why hot showers are so desired. And we say hot shower, but we don't mean normally a scalding hot shower that's taking the edge off of a cold wintry night. We're simply talking about having hot water that is provided at the time you get into the shower, so that when you step into the shower, it is not painfully cold. Because even here in León, which is one of the hottest cities in all of Latin America, the groundwater is excessively cold most of the time when you go to take a shower. It can be painful to step in many days, especially if it's at night and it has recently rained. You could easily be getting into a shower that actually hurts a little bit when you get into it, which of course causes people to waste water because you spend time adjusting to it as you try to inch your way in. It's very hard to simply jump in. Now, many days the water is relatively warm and it's comfortable enough to just get right in, and some days it's perfect and you actually don't want it heated every day. But it's certainly not every day that you would want it to be ambient temperature. It's just impractical. People say it only as an excuse for why it doesn't exist, but there is nobody who actually would want to voluntarily not have some way to warm their water and take the edge off at least part of the time. Now, it's true here in León or in Chinandega, the groundwater is much warmer than it is in the mountain towns. And so if you're from Matagalpa, Estelí, Jinotega, you're pretty much not going to put up with people in León or Chinandega complaining about the temperature of their showers, because they are taking actually freezing cold showers up there, 40, 50 degree water instead of 60, 70 degree water. And so they have no pity on us down here. But it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't matter what level of luxury you're coming from. The desire to have a shower that is comfortable when you get into it doesn't have to be hot. We're not talking about some sauna-like experience. Simply having heat to take the edge off is pleasant. It makes the entire shower a more pleasant experience, a more enjoyable experience. It makes it easier to take one quickly, and it greatly reduces the amount of soap that you need to use, and how effective that soap is when you do use it, and how well you can get it out of your hair and such. There's lots of reasons why you want hot water. It is not purely a luxury. It is also good for the environment in many cases, as long as you don't use too much energy to get it in the first place. But it is not widely available. Many hotels, certainly not all, have some means of heating the water. So don't be surprised if you go to a nice hotel and you have warm water of some sort. Don't be surprised if many houses don't at very least have a water tank that is going to be used to at least take the edge off. For example, with us, we do not have any type of heating on our water, but we do have a black water tank that holds our water during the day, and on a nice sunny day it warms up by a few degrees. It's not directly in the sun all the day, but it is a bit, and it will warm up, and it makes it not bad at all. So even if it gets cold at night, you just turn on the pump and pull from the black tank, and you get that couple extra degrees, and that's generally enough to be, oh, this is quite comfortable. It's not a problem. But if you're going to be building here, or if you're simply considering time in Nicaragua, you need to be aware that yes, no matter what someone tells you, I cannot believe how often people say, oh, who cares? You just never want hot water when you're in a hot climate. This is absolutely untrue. There's many cases where people cannot afford it or have decided that it is a luxury they are not going to splurge on, and that is fine, and that can be a reasonable decision, but that is not that they prefer it or have zero desire for hot water. That is ridiculous. And it is not that you can't do it or that you're being super premium. It can make a lot of sense. Just be aware you're easily not going to find it, and you may have to live without it. So it's an important balance. Be okay with not having it, appreciate it when you can get it, and think carefully about how you will achieve it when it gets to a point where you decide it's something that you want to add to your lifestyle. But you also have to be aware, as we do, that living in Nicaragua means that many of the activities we do, many times when we travel to other towns or just do whatever, if you're going and staying at someone's house, if you're staying in a hotel, if you require hot water, your options are going to be dramatically lowered and your cost is going to go way up. And if you can live with hot water only when you just be happy when you get it and be okay not getting it, then you're going to have a much more flexible, much more enjoyable life in Nicaragua. If you don't plan on traveling around ever, if you're simply building a house or buying a really nice house and are willing to modify, do whatever it takes to get the hot water that you want, well then no problem at all. Do that and you will be fine, of course, and you don't need a strong hot water infrastructure. It doesn't have to get that hot. You will probably, it is true that you don't want as hot of hot water as you would have in colder climates, but it never changes the fact that you want your water to not be super cold when you jump into the shower. It's just common sense, but everyone wants to make a point about something, and so they'll tell you a bunch of information that probably isn't true. It's pretty straightforward. Everyone wants it. It's not necessary. It can be achieved. It widely doesn't exist. Thanks for joining me. Leave your comments below. What are your experiences with hot water in and around Nicaragua, other countries in the area? Let's talk about this, because certainly when you get to like Guatemala, having no hot water starts to be a problem because it's way colder up there. They've got to warm it up or those showers are going to really hurt all the time. Like and subscribe. I will see all of you tomorrow.